Couple.
902.
Yeah. All right, welcome to everyone joining. If you're just logging on, please go to the chat box and tell us where you're from.
Good morning, everyone.
Morris.
That, Norma, that explains Brian a little bit, actually.
She agrees.
Thank goodness.
That's how you know it's going to be a good session.
Yeah.
All right, to everyone joining, please go in the chat box, tell us where you're from. Got Reno, Nevada here. Awesome.
Yeah.
What do they call Reno? The big
Reno?
city or the little big city? It's not.
Isn't Reno like the biggest little city?
The biggest little city.
Yeah, the biggest little city. Yeah.
There was a monster truck game on original Nintendo, and one of the stops to race your monster trucks was Reno. So whenever I see or hear Reno, that like, oh, Nintendo.
Yeah.
I think like
funny.
Reno
Awesome.
reminds me of Vegas Vacation, that classic early 90s, mid 90s movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That's what
Hey,
Chuck
Bonnie's-
and all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Great to have you on, Bonnie. Okay.
All right, great. Yeah, we'll just funnel in for the next couple minutes and we'll get started very soon. And this is our last session, so if you've got questions for Steve, now is the time to answer them. So we have them prepped.
Yeah, actually, if you guys have questions now as people are rolling in, and can
Yeah.
start there and then
Yeah,
get
feel
into
free to
the
put them in
presentation
chat.
proper. I'd be happy to do that.
So Steve, I remember in episode 2 at about the 37-minute mark, you were talking about
Back then,
Back
I was
there.
probably talking about the go-to-market plan.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Still didn't get the
Or-
downloads.
Downloads.
Or maybe I was mishearing you, Steve, because I was on my bike for that one.
Well, Steve, that's probably the downloads from your session. Was it 2 where you had those PDFs?
Yep.
Perfect.
So
Right there.
Bonnie, I just threw a link into the chat. If you click it, you can either click either of the buttons to download in the individual resources, or just put your email in and we'll email those resources to you.
Awesome for that. Steve, this is so well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So high tech.
I want to make it easy.
Yeah. All right.
All
Because
right.
I actually think these resources answer a lot of questions and make building the process that we're discussing easier.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll just give everyone about 1 more minute to file in. I know we opened it up a little later than normal, and then we'll get started.
All right. Perfect.
Any other planets out there besides Mars?
All right. Perfect.
All right, it is 9:02 our West Coast time, so we'll go ahead and get started to be respectful of everyone's time. I want to welcome everyone to session 4, the last session of Steve Alexander's awesome series that he's put on how to get rid of vision plans and put your practice into predominantly private pay. And a few announcements before we get started. Number 1, merchant services. There's an exclusive 15% discount for Odys on Finance members. So if you've seen Darren Jackson on Odys on Finance, he is the guy. Go to him. He can handle everything, whether it be a POS. If you need a practice loan, he can do that as well. Everything in between that, he can handle it. He's got great rates. With his POS and with the credit card processing, he's been able to get our members the lowest rates possible.
Yeah.
I can't actually say the rates out loud. Apparently that's against the law, but he's able to get the best rates possible. So definitely reach out to him if that's something that you're looking for, if that's a gap in your practice. Scan that QR code, shoot him a text, shoot him an email. He's very responsive and he'll get you hooked up right away.
Yep.
And ODs on Finance careers. So if you haven't heard about it, you probably have at this point, since y'all are ODs on Finance members. The Indeed of Optometry jobs, feel free to scan that QR code right there. If you are an individual looking for a job, it's absolutely free to create a profile. So do it, even if you're not looking for a job currently, just have your candidate profile there. And if you're looking to fill an optometrist position, it's $19 a month to put your listing up. It's about 10 times less than any other website out there. And if you're looking to sell your practice, $2.99 a month to put your practice up there for sale. And there's no broker fees. And what happens, what's awesome with this is you can then a la carte a consultant to help you out with that. And I'm actually going to talk about that in just a second. There's one more slide here. This is our next CE event. So it's happening in 2 weeks, 2 free hours of COPE-approved billing and coding. Scan that QR code. So Chris Wolf is once again returning. This is a brand new lecture that he put on. It focuses on anterior segment disease. So make sure to not miss that one. And that's happening in 2 weeks. And speaking of consultants, I've got the awesome Eric with us today, and he's going to be talking about Akrinos for a little bit. And Akrinos is just a fantastic resource, both for cold starts and individuals looking to purchase practices, and they've got quite a few options. So Eric, I'm going to let you take over.
Awesome. Well, hey, good morning, everyone. Eric Mateo on behalf of our team, Akrinos. I guess I failed to drop in the chat, but I'm coming to you all from right here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Beautiful morning here in New Orleans as we are patiently waiting for the change of the season. So, hey, look, y'all, I do have a few slides that I went ahead and put together to really just kind of give everybody a little insight into the world of Akrinos, right? But before we jump into that, I like to make music, and I've come to really get a lot of enjoyment out of making fun, catchy little tunes about, well, all the fascinating stuff going on in our industry. So this is a little ditty I put together for this morning. So, any Dylan fans out there? It goes something like this. Come doctors and partners from throughout the land. It's time to learn the truth about the vision care plans and what you can do to escape their command. Our industry now, it's worth saving. We're leading the charge. We're taking the stand for the times they are a-changing. And it's just that, right? The times are changing, okay? Vision plans, managed care, and the role of managed vision plans in our industry has been huge. But just because that's what's been going on for the last 20 or 30 years doesn't mean that that's what's going to be going on into the future. So I'd like to share with y'all briefly a little bit about the universe of Akrinos. And it starts with this, right? What are we in the business of doing? What is our mission? It's pretty simple. We're all about bringing your vision to reality. And so that being said, well, who do we serve? Look, we're all about independent optometry because, see, the fact is this, is that the future of healthcare, we believe, is in private practice. It's in practice ownership. So we're here to help doctors achieve their personal and professional goals and experience security and freedom in private practice. So this applies to both emerging practice owners who are looking for ways to cold start, purchase, or become a partner in practice, and likewise established practice owners who are looking for ways to achieve sustainable growth and efficiency in their practice, perhaps are looking to bring on that associate as a partner or otherwise plan their exit strategy. So what's your vision, right? Who are you? Where are you in your career? Are you an emerging practice owner looking to cold start or purchase a practice? Or are you established in your practice, perhaps have that associate you're ready to make partner, or looking for ways to improve your practice? So on the cold start front, we love what we do working with cold starts. We've got a comprehensive portfolio solution that's called the Practice Launchpad. Truly escorts the doctor through every phase from planning, development, and launch of their practice. And you can learn a whole lot about the Practice Launchpad at akrinos.com. Go into the cold start corner. A lot of great, remarkable resources for you to go ahead and utilize. So now, if you're not looking to cold start, perhaps you're having an opportunity to buy in or purchase a practice, or likewise, perhaps you're that established practice that's looking to bring on the associate as a partner. Our 360 transition solution is it. I mean, truly, it is everything throughout the OD to OD transition process, from valuation through negotiation and implementation. I will say, if you are looking to sell your practice to private equity, we are not your team. However, reach out to us. We've got a lot of connections through the industry with folks that can help you, but we are all about preserving the future of private practice and independent optometry. And we love what we do working with doctors with our 360 transition solution. And lastly, perhaps you are that doctor, you're sitting here, you're an established practice, and you're looking for ways to continue to grow and drive efficiency. And look, that's why you're tuned into this. You're wanting to find ways to reduce your reliance on managed care. And we love the work we do within our Analyze, Strategize, Implement portfolio. And what is this? Look, these are the sustainable solutions that are going to amplify your profitability, eliminate headaches, and nurture the culture for your team, right? We're to a time now where you no longer have to be looking for the next get rich quick scheme or quick saving on a rebate, chasing a rebate, right? It's about implementing sustainable solutions in your practice. And again, we love everything we do with our clients that are working with us in Analyze, Strategize, Implement, and are thrilled with the results that we're able to deliver them. So that being said, when we look at the future of the industry and the future of private practice and private practice ownership, the work we do across our portfolio really positions us to really live out our vision, our why, right? Which is all about empowering independent optometry in the modern healthcare environment. Now, I thought I'd close by sharing a little bit more about us and who we are, right? Many of you have come to know me pretty well over the years, being a fixture within the ODs on Finance community, but a little bit more about us. Who are we? Okay. So for starters, we're an innovative, high energy, results driven team. This is not our side hustle. As a matter of fact, you'll notice here, we're going to wrap it up. Can't wait to introduce the team here as we make our way through these slides. So first and foremost about us, this is not our side hustle. We are committed to delivering results for our clients. Number two, we are 100% independent, employee owned. We have no connections to private equity. We have no corporate interest, and we are not owned by any entities that are located overseas or have other business dealings, right? And last but certainly not least, and I know this is something that Dat and Aaron have really loved about our company from day one, and why they invited us to be a part of the ODs on Finance community, because everything we do is all around transparent, flat fee pricing. We do not accept vendor kickbacks. We're not an alliance. We do not profit as a middleman. This is who we are and what we're all about. And we're really passionate about all the work we do. And we really are confident about the future of independent optometry. So look, I've said enough. I know Steve has a lot of really remarkable things to get into in this fourth of four. So thank you all for the opportunity to help make this possible. If y'all need to get a hold of me, you can find us through ODs on Finance. Heck, you can tag me. I'm on the socials. I think most of y'all see me. I stay pretty active in the ODs on Finance community. Love answering questions from all community members. So on behalf of our team at Akrinos, have a great meeting. Thanks for letting us be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. And once again, I do want to emphasize how transparent Eric and his team are. I don't know if you've ever seen a consultant put all their fees on the slide like they are right there. That's just how he operates, and really recommend it. And if you're looking for a consultant, this is the guy you want to go to. This is top-notch consulting. So Eric, thank you again.
Thanks, y'all.
All right, and today's event is now going to commence. So remember, this is a non-CE event, so don't email us for CE certificates afterwards. And all material is property of the speaker, not us, and all his views and opinions are his, not ours. And so, Steve, we're really happy to have you on for the last part of this series. I know it's been a very interesting series, one that's never been done before. And we're just going to wrap it up. We're kind of going to put it all together today. So, Steve, I'm going to let you take it over.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Dat. Eric, thank you for the sponsorship. Let me get my screen share situated, and then we can hopefully see if I can have my notes on the same screen. Let's see. Can you see my notes?
I can see just the slides right now.
Okay, perfect. I think that's where we want to be. Okay, so today is session 4 of 4. How do we define success? If we think about
we basically
yeah,
see your notes
You
right
can
now.
see your notes.
I
yeah.
asked this already.
Yeah.
See it first. Now we can.
Yeah. Now
All right, got it. So I think we're good. But it's just intro notes. I want to make sure that I thank everybody for all the work that they've done. I know getting this kind of thing together takes a lot of effort. I always want to open with gratitude. So thank you, everybody. Today, we've got 5 things on the agenda. Some are going to take a little bit longer than others. The intro and recap, if you've been following along with the 4 sessions, will be pretty familiar. We're going to go through real quick what we've talked about in the past, how we got to where we are right now, and then we're going to define success. We're going to talk about the results pyramid, which I'd mentioned in previous sessions. We're going to show a couple of examples of how to look at it, how to think about it, and how to use it to improve your practice. Then we're going to put it all together, the entire 4-part series, into how to take the information shared here, the tools, the resources, etc., put it together in a way that'll impact your practice, not just on the out-of-network side, not just in building more private pay business, but in creating a culture that is receptive to change and capable of change. And I think having a successful business culture is one of those things that is easy to say, right? It's a fun catch-all term, but it doesn't mean anything until it does. Hopefully this session will help us create that meaning. So for introductions, if we go through kind of the past, session 1 was thinking about how we got to where we are, and the sort of decision that we came to was figuring out how to control what we can control. So the things that you look at on the outside are out of your control. Things that you look at the inside circle are within your control. So let's focus on that. All of these things, likewise, within your control. So let's kind of think about our opportunities and pick a direction. Session 2 was where are we headed, picking a direction. And what we had decided was we can go wherever we want to go as long as we have a plan. So we put together this go-to-market plan. If after the first session, we put together a how to speak open access toolkit, which has an infographic that looks like this describing how to think about it, how to talk about it, how to position it with your team. Then there's example scripts on the bottom, so you can use it, example scripts both for phone conversations and emails, so you can use those tools to educate your team, to help educate your team. I should also note that there are consultancies that can help, that can talk through, that actually see this as a positive and will give you a true analysis of your business. Eric at Akrinos being a prime example of a team that will help your practice see if and when this makes sense for you. The how to go to market plan also available. We dug into it in session 2, where we talk about when you're going to make a big change to your practice. Everyone on the team has to understand the change, has to understand the impact on them, has to understand their impact on the rest of the team, and so forth. In session 3, we talked about how implementing a new idea sort of exists in your practice. So, quick recap of the image. This is your whole practice with all the various departments. How do you shove a new idea in there? And the process tends to go, the new idea is outside, the new idea is in. We want to engender individual buy-in. We talked through in session 3 the specifics of what an individual buy-in looks like. Then we talk about shared ownership. So once the individuals are on board, how do we make sure that the team element of whatever this new idea is addressed, and how each part of your organization has to adapt to what you're trying to do. Then we talk about full integration and what that looks like. This is the point at which your new idea is just part of your practice now, and you don't have to think about it anymore. And because of that, you can add a new idea. So this is part of understanding how we go from an idea to part of your practice and then back again. So that was a very, very quick recap of the three previous sessions. But what we want to kind of lay out is the overall approach that we're trying to take. So find out where you are and how you arrived, decide where you're headed, make a plan, get going, get individual buy-in, get team buy-in, integrate, measure, and then repeat. So I know it's a big, those are all big sort of bullets in this process, but that is how we want to understand how you make a change. So whether it's the out of network thing or bringing in a new piece of diagnostic equipment or whatever, there's a process that you have to follow. And the process is variable, right? Not every office is built the same way. Not every leader talks the same way or presents stuff the same way. But whatever that process looks like for you might take some trial and error to nail down the specifics. But it's not something that you can do by the seat of your pants. So that's where we are. So getting into today's session, and just before I go to the next slide, I want to kind of call out, if you guys have questions about what I'm describing here, what I've talked about in the past, feel free to drop it into Q&A throughout this presentation. I'll have quotes where I can pause and answer questions as they arise. Okay. So if we dive back into our go-to-market plan from session 2, and we talked about a bit in session 3 on becoming an open access provider, we laid out when we did that success criteria. Now, this was just an example, right? It's non-specific to any vision plan, but it is kind of a good example of how you might want to think about it. So just a quick recap: if you're in network with XYZ Vision Plan, your present patient volume is 100, net revenue for those patients is about 130, so your total net is 13K. If you go open access, patient volume is 40, net revenue is 330, so your total net volume ends up being the same or pretty close to, while seeing 60% fewer patients from this vision plan. Now, again, this is a bird's eye view, and it may not be indicative of how actual vision plans operate. We had some requests throughout the series about getting a little bit more granular. So I want to show you a quick example. These numbers are reflective of a real vision plan, real practice, and real costs and nets. I'm not going to specify which vision plan this is because then it opens up other opportunities. But in any case, we'll look at this. So if you look at it in network, let's start at the very leftmost column. For lenses, we're talking about top-tier progressive lenses in poly with a top-tier anti-reflective coating. Patient's going to pay $265. This is a $250 frame. The patient's allowance drops it down to $104. The patient has an exam copay of $20, which is a total of $389. The nets for the practice with these same payments are around $277. That includes write-offs and discounts and everything else that kind of comes along with that, and all of the dispensing fees as well. So patient pays you that, practice nets that, not too bad. Now, this is at the very highest end of things with a higher end vision plan as well. What does this look like from an out of network or open access standpoint, assuming the same materials? So the patient pay goes up across the board. Same type of lens, same type of frames. The exam is now 110, obviously, because the patient's not getting that copay. Their totals are a good deal higher, 698 as opposed to 389, but they get an out-of-network reimbursement. So their net is 533. Now, you'll notice that your net as a practice is about $122 more than it was on an in-network basis. Now, on its own, $122 doesn't sound like a ton, but when you compare it relative to that, it is like an 80% increase of your net revenue. And now you look at the different cost to the patient, 389 versus 533. When all said and done, that's $140 difference, $135 difference. That's not nothing. So, the question that I often get is, well, why would a patient go out of network when they can go in network? Because it's so much more expensive for them to go out of network. And that's true. It's more expensive if they go out of network, but only if you keep using the same materials you've been using as an in-network provider. What does it look like if you go to a house brand progressive, as an example? Now, most private labs you talk to have some house brand progressive available to you. And because you're seeing this patient on an open access basis, you can choose whatever products you like. You can choose whatever lab you like. You can even choose whatever frame you like. In this case, we stuck with the same frame to keep it consistent across the board. All we really changed was the brand of the progressive and the charge for the eye exam. So we follow this kind of the same way. If the patient pays you these amounts, their cost on a given day is $526, then they get $165 back, and their total cost is $361. Your total revenue is $336. So if you look at this open access house brand lens, the cost to the patient is actually less, and the revenue to the practice, the net revenue to the practice, is actually more. So I wanted to run through this quick example to illustrate how to think about evaluating a vision plan on a more granular level. All of this information is necessary to make a truly informed decision. So it's easy for me to say, if you have 100 vision plan patients and you drop it and you catch 40 of them, you're going to realize more revenue that way than on an in-network basis. But the question that always follows that is, well, how do I capture those patients? And part of the way that you do that is by building your practice the way that you want to build it, by understanding who and what you want to be as a practitioner and as a practice, and making sure your patients are aware of that. So, in session 1, we talked about specialization, specifically in that vein. The more you specialize, the more private pay business comes in, the more word gets around, the more space you have to do that. When you're fully reliant on vision plans, you end up in the situation where your book is totally full and you can't specialize. So this is a chance to think about, okay, how do I separate myself from a vision plan in a way that both helps my business right now, helps my patient right now, and increases my bottom line? So I know this is a big slide of numbers, but hopefully this helps to illustrate what we're talking about. I did see some questions pop in. So isn't net only about 44% higher? Yeah, it may be. I just did a quick bit of mental math. So it's possible, Sean, that it's possible it might be 40% higher. Perry has a question about a house brand. How do you trust the house brand? Essler X has worked great. I just can't imagine an $80 progressive is good. I think that's a really good question, actually. So the way that you trust it is by understanding what goes into it, understanding what makes a Verilux X lens a Verilux X lens, and what makes whatever house brand you're talking about that house brand. Today, because most progressives or many progressives are digitally surfaced, the traditional design concept isn't the same as it was before. So there are plenty of progressives, digital progressives that exist that simulate designs along the lines of your top tier Shamir or Hoya or Essler lenses. Now, it's also important to recognize that Verilux X is a great lens, but it is not a great lens to the exclusion of other great lenses. Many progressive patients were plenty successful with the progressive long before the X was invented, long before the S design even came out. So the way I would suggest that you evaluate these lenses is by giving your patient an opportunity, or several patients an opportunity, to test them out. Bring it in, fit them with it, give them a guarantee that if they don't like it, you will replace it with whatever lens they were wearing, and give it a fair shot, and the same kind of fair shot that you give a progressive now, because no matter how good the technology has become, most standard operating procedure in optical departments are around dispensing the eyewear, and if the patient doesn't love them right away, to give it some time. So give your patient some time with these lenses, and recognize that most of the value that's created with lenses comes from your opticians. Opticians create value. So, leverage that, make sure your patients understand that there's an opportunity for you to demonstrate your expertise. Now, combine all of what was just said here. Imagine you're going to offer your patient an easy process to use their out-of-network benefits or their open access benefits, and you're going to lower their price. So you're going to give them better glasses or the same quality of lenses, maybe better frames, but you're going to get them to them more quickly, and you're going to do it in a way that sustains your business over the long term. Thanks for the questions, everybody. Okay, so how do we measure our success? If we kick off with the success criteria that we talked about in the go-to-market plan, we just have to take it seriously. We have to take those goals seriously and measure. We want to check in often with whoever is assigned or whoever is the most likely to influence our goals. So if we expect to capture 40% of the XYZ Vision Plan patients on an open access basis, then we have to have like a monthly goal of how many of those patients are coming in. If we know we see 100 of them throughout the year in network, that means fewer than 10 a month in network. If we're going to see 40 of them throughout the year, that means about 2 to 3 patients per month. So keep tabs on your appointment book, make sure that people are coming in. If phone calls come in but they're unconverted, find out why, find out what happened, learn what the objections are, and practice with your team. This type of process takes time for everybody to get accustomed to. Most importantly to note here is a lot of front desk people, a lot of receptionists, or your first touch points for a lot of your patients aren't necessarily trained in sales. And what we are describing here is a sales process, and that's true in network or out. A patient on the phone wants to get an appointment, wants to have an eye exam, or wants to come in and buy stuff from your business, and your front desk is the gatekeeper. So make sure that the training is there to help them facilitate the kind of business that you want to facilitate. And then that comes into a huge point that probably deserves its own 4-part series, is adaptation and accountability. I know it's difficult to coach folks you've been working with for 20 years, or if you're a small practice and there are only 4 of you on your whole team, it's difficult to coach somebody if they're maybe not receptive to it or not open for one reason or another. But it is absolutely vital that there is accountability in every process that you change. And that doesn't mean punishing anybody. That doesn't mean being rude or ruling with an iron fist. What accountability actually is where we want to set expectations, and then we want to hold to those expectations. It's not letting people just do what they want and hoping for the best. It is understanding that making these changes are part of their responsibilities. And, if over time they abdicate those responsibilities, that you've got to make a change, whether it's in how they approach it or how you approach leading the team. But that is such a vital element to doing this successfully across any project you take on. So this is one of those opportunities for me to pause, to take a little bit of water. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, looks like we're good. So moving on. I had mentioned a couple of times throughout the presentation the results pyramid. So I wanted to dive in on that as a concept. I want to show a couple of examples of how that works. And these examples are specifically related to how we perceive vision plan stuff and the likely results or the likely impacts on your business. So the results pyramid goes like this. It is a baseline of experiences which inform beliefs, which inform actions, which inform results. We do these kind of one step at a time. Experiences are everything that kind of happens to a person or around a person. If anything that you go and do or happens near you is an experience. The way the human mind works is you take that experience and you file it somewhere in your brain. So if you as a kid, you touch fire, that's an experience. The belief that you end up with is that fire is hot. I probably shouldn't touch it. And that's a great way to adapt and look forward. And the human mind is really great at pattern recognition and making assumptions for, well, if I did this thing once, that's probably how it's going to go from now on. We know intellectually that's not always true, but there is an instinctive element to that. And then, so if you burn your hand, if you believe fire is always dangerous, your actions might be to never get near fire again, or to be really cautious around fire, or I don't know, maybe you liked the burning sensation, you go further into fire. Whatever it is, the way that you experience a thing impacts your beliefs, which then influences your actions and then influences your results. If you never go near fire again, maybe you don't take up cooking, or you don't like camping, or if you like fire a little too much, maybe you go in a different direction. But whatever, this just should illustrate what the results pyramid is and how one could look at it. So if we look at the vision plan edition, or a vision plan edition, now there's, I think, 5 examples here. Each of them go through a different experience, belief, action, result. And as I was putting this together, I ended up titling each slide like a Harry Potter book. So please excuse me, it's just me playing around. But if you look at this one kind of from bottom up, the industry experts, the common knowledge, the prevailing wisdom says that you should credential with virtually all vision plans. So the beliefs that are influenced by those experiences are that new and tenured and experienced practice owners and their staff usually subscribe to it. They think, because everyone says that they should, that all vision plans are necessary, or virtually all. So then what happens? The practice invests their time and effort and energy to get credentialed and service those patients using those rules. And what are the results there? The practice is in network with many plans, and their appointment book is dominated by vision plan patients, or likely dominated by vision plan patients. So, and you can think on the knock-on results of that. But let's go dive into kind of a different example. This one is once credentialed. I like this one. Vision plans and the million rules to live by. Once credentialed, the practice is obligated to follow the rules, regulations, and restrictions and reimbursements. So when credentialed with a vision plan, you agree to a fee schedule, you agree to charge stuff, you agree to a service level for your patients. You even agree in some cases where if the patient doesn't like the eyewear that they bought from you, they've got an extended period of time to complain to their vision plan, where they will force a refund, and a bunch of rules that you would otherwise not want to live by. But because of the first slide we went over, because everyone tells you should, you think you must, so you do. Then the team becomes accustomed to the services and products and other restrictions that come along with it. And that limits the scope that your staff offers to non-vision plan patients. So if you think about what a typical, let's say, optician has to deal with, or your frame stylist has to deal with as it relates to vision plans. Each vision plan has a different set of rules and services, and often different labs that they use. So what the team typically does is they pick a set of products that fit most of the vision plans. So, and what that ends up being, we were talking about it earlier, is like a top tier progressive, as an example, like Verilux X, because Essilor is a giant company. They find they are on every formulary, and to be clear, they make good lenses also, but they find themselves on every formulary. So it makes it easy to just choose an Essilor product, so that every vision plan patient, you can have a similar conversation. You don't have to know everything about every lens. You just have to know enough about the lenses that you can offer to make this easy. Another knock-on effect we'll get into a little bit later on is how much patient volume you end up having to work with because of these vision plans. Let's follow this all the way through. So if the experiences are you've got to follow the rules, the beliefs are, these lenses, the lenses that we have to choose are A, B, and C, then the staff acts accordingly. They only offer the stuff that is within the formulary because it's easier. Trying to get a patient to understand why a given lens costs what it costs and how their vision plan works is an exercise in futility. The vision plans are confusing to everybody, patients and staff included. So the results that happen here is your team ends up creating plan-friendly processes throughout the practice, not just when they're dealing with a vision plan, but when they're dealing with every patient, because switching every time is challenging and taxing on the brain. This one, vision plans and the very vertical integration. So something to note that vision plans increasingly have created incentives to have your practice lean in further and further with the stuff that they make or the stuff that they've licensed. So your patients or your vision plan patients are incentivized to buy frames owned by the vision plan's parent company, or to order lenses with the vision plan's name on it, or to stock frames to get a next level membership with a given vision plan. Now, none of these things are inherently bad individually, but when they combine all together, what you realize is the vision plan is winning every step of the way, and the patient might get an incremental discount and you might get an incremental increase in the reimbursement that you get. But when you think about who's winning in this equation, it's always the vision plan. And this is so pervasive is predicated on the earlier experiences. Because everyone tells you that vision plans are necessary, then you just kind of let them do it and let them do all of these things and just kind of lean in, because it's easier to do it this way than to swim upstream, so to speak. Vision plans and the obsolescence of marketing. This one is my favorite. We've talked about this before, but if your vision plans do what they say they're going to do and they actually drive patients through your doors, then the beliefs is vision plans are doing what they said they do. So we've got patients. Then the actions are, our book is full, our staff is at capacity, we can't handle any more business, so we can chill, which means, we've got a full book. I don't need to market. I don't need to think about how to get more patients in. We're too busy for that. I can't put out fires. I can't recruit. I can't install additional services because I am too busy. And this is one of those things that it seems like a positive, but in the long-term health or for the long-term health of your practice could actually be detrimental if you become entirely reliant on vision plans as your primary source of patients. And I know this happens. This is conversations I have often with practitioners is around the marketing. How do I market? What do I say? How do I get in front of people? And depending on where you are, if you're in a big city, it's much harder to get in front of a lot of people in your neck of the woods, which is where specialization comes in as a benefit, not just to how you practice, but how you can talk about your practice. If your business is the best dry eye clinic, or the best contact lens specialist, or the best sports vision doc, or neurooptometry, or low vision, or whatever, the people searching for that in your neck of the woods are much more likely to find you when you feature it prominently than they are to find any old practice that just has the same general information that every other practice does. Here's another example. This we were talking about earlier, the vision plans in the overflowing appointment book. This is a problem I see come up, and it happens less so during this time of year because this tends to be part of the post back to school lull. But very common to see posts on various forums that say something like, I'm booked out 6 weeks in advance, or I'm booked out 8 weeks in advance. Isn't that awesome? And on one hand, yeah, like that's pretty good. But if you think about the practical implications of being booked out 8 weeks in advance, one of the biggest things that I'd call out is that new patients will not wait. So if you get a new patient who calls your practice, a new private pay patient who calls your practice and wants to come in, and you don't have time for 8 weeks, they're not going to come see you. There are things you can do to build in gaps to fit those folks in, but being booked out 8 weeks in advance could be detrimental from a new patient standpoint, but also if you're booked out 8 weeks in advance, you probably have more patients than your practice can handle. So maybe that's a good sign to think about, well, there's probably a vision plan that's accounting for at least some of those patients. Maybe I can reconsider my relationship with them. Maybe I can think about, what are the experiences that I've had so far? What do I believe about the vision plans? What actions have I taken and what have the results been? And that's where we go back to the earlier charts that we were talking about. The chart with the whole patient base and the one talking about the individual eyewear or the individual transaction. Looks like. All right, I'm going to take a quick break here. Jason got a late start. Yes, there will be a link to the recording, typically a couple of days after the session. Okay. All right. Monday, it looks like. Thanks, Stat. Okay. So knowing what we know about the results pyramid, let's try this the other way around, right? So if we start with the results, if we go back to the objective in the go-to-market plan and the success criteria, what outcomes are we looking for? What are the results that we want to have? So if we know what the capstone is going to be, we're aiming to keep 40% of our vision plans, or we're aiming to vision plan patients, or we're aiming to drop a given vision plan, or we're looking to bring in a new piece of equipment and we want to have a certain amount of penetration or what have you. If we start at the top and know what the results are, or what the results we want to see are, then we can think about, okay, what are the actions that I have to take, that the team has to take in order to facilitate those results. So if you follow along in the go-to-market, you've written your internal description and your communication strategy such that everyone on your team should come to you with a plan of action where they know what they're responsible for. They know how they're going to get themselves and the rest of the team to the results that we want to aim for. And then understanding that, what does the practice need to believe? What do the individuals in the practice need to believe about what we're doing in order to take the actions we want them to take, in order to facilitate the results that we want to see? And then like the same thing, you guys following along probably could see this coming. What are the experiences that we need to generate for our team such that they have the beliefs that what we're doing will work, such that they will then take the actions that we need them to take so that we can have the results that we want to see. Now, if we go back to the charts that we were talking about before, if we stick with out of network as the overall thing that we're doing as part of this presentation, the experiences that you want to give to your staff as you're bringing this idea to them is that this will be successful, and we have the tools for it to be successful. And especially if you can illustrate, look, like we expect that there's going to be some amount of patient drop off, but we also understand that we can offer these patients better products or similar products at lower or similar prices, and the revenue to our practice will be much higher. We will be able to work more closely with a greater number of private pay patients to deliver the kind of business or to deliver the kind of service that we want to deliver. So all of these are really important in understanding how things are going to go and in setting the stage for things to go the way that you want them to go. This is a bit conceptual, but hopefully all of those various examples illustrate how the results pyramid actually works and how it works, whether you want to influence or not. This is just a response to typical human psychology. So if you can understand the way people decide how to behave, then you can influence it in a way that makes everyone's lives easier, yourself, your staff, your patients included. The only sort of constituent here who doesn't do better is the vision plan. And I think everyone in this room is broadly okay with that. Okay, one more sip of coffee. I'm almost done. And I quite like this quote as well. This is something that, like, once you have a new experience, you're never the same. It actually doesn't even matter what the experience is. Like, this is a weird story. A friend of mine didn't have a banana until he was 15. We've been friends forever. And like, he was just a different person after he had a banana. Nothing major changed, but he knew what a banana was like. That's the kind of stuff that we talk about when new experience stretches the mind, even if it's just a little bit. So we want to be open to those things also. Okay, so we want to put it all together and kind of wrap a tight little bow around everything that we've been talking about. So if we discuss the overall approach, as I kind of put this together, I saw that it stacks neatly into 10 steps. Step 1 is to find out where you are and how you arrived. That's what we covered in session 1. Step 2 is to decide where you're headed. And that is also part of session 1, where now that you understand your landscape, you know where you are, you probably have a sense for where you'd like to go. Step 3, make a plan. That's the go-to-market plan. And I know it's detailed, quite specific, but the more specificity you put into your plan, the more likely it is to succeed, and not because you put more specificity into the plan itself, but because you put more effort into thinking about what has to be done. Making the plan is the value. It's not the plan, if that makes sense. There's a general that used to say the plan is worthless, but planning is essential. And I wouldn't say it's worthless, but the effort that goes into figuring out what you want to do and how you want to do it is invaluable to making change. Step 4 is get going. Once you've decided, once you've made the plan, get started. Step 5 is get individual buy-in. So that's understanding the motivations of each individual team member, understanding where they're at in knowing why you want to make the change and what the change will mean for them and for their patients, getting the team buy-in, understanding the interactions between them. Step 7 is integrate. That's where you go from a new idea to integrated, where then you can add another element of new, right? Once you've integrated, you can add another element of new. Then you can continue to measure, set your success criteria, set your KPIs, measure those. I actually think it's also really valuable to have whoever is responsible for the goal measure and report. That is valuable. That is something we could also talk about for a long time, is the value of meetings and good business practices throughout your practices. Step 9, iterate to improve. So once you're doing a thing, once you're measuring a thing, and if it's not going exactly the way that you'd like it to go, make slight changes over time, not broad, let's start over, but slight changes can have a huge impact on the results of something. Things as simple as language, right? The difference between saying anti-reflective coating or the brand name of the anti-reflective coating and non-glare for the patient, or to say something like, I'm going to put a coating on your lenses that will make it easier for you to work on the computer or drive at night. That will improve your AR percentage, your AR penetration, even though it's just a minor tweak in language. So there's a ton there, but iteration to improvement, and then build through accountability. I think this is the part where most practices will struggle the most. I think all of the preceding steps are relatively easy individually, right? You evaluate, you make a decision, you make a plan, you start doing stuff, you work with your team, you do it and see how it goes. But the accountability piece, I find, is the most difficult for private practice owners to carry out, because they spend so much time with their team, and so many practitioners and employees view their work family like a family. And it's it's actually really important that you have accountability, but it doesn't have to be harsh. I know some people are emotional about that stuff, but if you set the expectations early on that if somebody's underperforming, that they're going to hear about it, that's good, actually. Most people, most employees want to know how they're performing, and the clarity of that is a benefit in the short, medium, and long term. It takes a couple of seconds of courage to start the conversation, but once you've started, it becomes much, much easier. And if you do it consistently, it becomes easier than that. And if you have regular one-on-ones, they can be positive all the time. And then when something needs to be addressed, it can be addressed as part of the generally positive accountability culture that you've built. So hopefully that'll be good. And then key takeaways. So if we back up a little bit and look at the entire series, some of the key takeaways are around controlling what you can control, setting yourself and your team up for success, understanding self-reliance and what that means, and to kind of connect it back to our previous sessions. Controlling what you can control is understanding the things that exist around your practice that will happen irrespective of what you do, knowing that they're there, but not letting them impact what you're doing with your practice. So, every time we break, we have a month between each of these sessions. Every time we break, some big acquisition always happens and seems to be accelerating a bit. Big companies are being swallowed up by bigger companies, and it's going to continue to happen. And there's a good reason to pay close attention to it. But that is by and large out of our control. Alliances being acquired by vision plans, or big labs being acquired by companies that own vision plans or whatever, that's probably going to continue to happen. But those things tend to lean towards generalist practitioners and generalist practices. So if you specialize and build this process, the impact those things can have on your successful private pay, loyal patient base practice will diminish over time. And I think that is where I'd like everybody to put their focus is, if your business is not dependent on vision plans, then the things they do, won't bother you directly. You might have like a moral objection to it, and that's certainly fine, but at least your practice won't be subject to their whims. And that is another thing that we want to make sure that everybody understands. The vision plans that you're in network with right now are either owned by a company that's actively working to take business away from you, while still supporting private practice, of course, or they are negotiating against one another to try to win their business from vision plan to vision plan. And if that happens, if your biggest employer locally goes from a vision plan you accept to a vision plan that you don't, what do you do then? You are still very subject to the whims of these vision plans, even if you're, quote, doing everything right. So if you understand that side of it, the impact that those big acquisitions have will be diminished over time, certainly. When I say set yourself up and your team up for success, what I'm talking about is building out processes and understanding and providing resources and tools for your team to be able to do anything. Eric at the top of the hour, he has his 3-step process, and starting with analyze, I believe, and it is vital to have a plan that your team can respond to, and having partners that are within the practice are certainly valuable. But if you need help, recognize that there are people out here who want to help, who will literally write songs about dropping vision plans. That's the kind of ally that you want talking to your team, so that they understand what the benefits to them could be. And that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, is a lot of the resistance to change is around, well, this is just going to make my life harder and I won't see a benefit from it. So if you change that perception, everything becomes easier from then. We talk about understanding self-reliance and what it actually means. That is the marketing piece that we talked about. And that I don't want it to be like a swear word marketing. It is getting known in your community for what you want to do. Dr. Neufeld, for example, I know he opened a new contact lens institute over the past month or so, like in the very recent past. And that is a practice devoted to being the best specialty contact lens fitting practice in that neighborhood. So the goal for that is to find those patients that are struggling with contacts, and presumably when they Google something like "my contacts hurt" or "sensitive to contacts" or whatever, those search terms should lead to your website, and that website should lead the patient from, well, I don't know anything about this practice, to, oh, I think they can help me. And that is like a quick sort of microcosm of self-reliance, is understanding the kind of patient you want to see, building your business accordingly, and then doing what is necessary to have those patients go from looking for a practice to finding and being in your practice. That is, I think, what kind of the more pernicious element of vision plan credentialing is, that practices become reliant on them for their patient sourcing and don't have a method of getting those patients without them. So if you're not able to drive patients through your door without a vision plan, I had that Confucius quote up earlier, is that one who thinks they can and one who thinks they can't are both right. So if you think, as a practice, if you think that you can't drive new patients through your door without vision plans, you're right. But if you think you can, if you think you can find, if you think there are patients in your community who want to see you as their eye doctor, or you want to come to your practice to get eyewear, whatever the case is, that is a good first step, right? Believing that that you can do it. I got a question from Dat. I feel more dentist offices are going out of network. Do you see optometry going toward this route? Do you have any stats or personal insights on how many OD practices are fully out of network? So great question. I see kind of the same thing. And while I hesitate to speculate, something that has been pretty common in my perception of the dental and eye care industry is dental tends to run 6 to 10 years ahead of eye care. So all of the things that the dental industry was doing 6 or 10 years ago, eye care is typically doing today. So in that, like, if we look at private equity and vertical integration and all that stuff, 6 to 10 years ago, Aspen Dental, Delta Dental were out buying up practices and combining them under a single brand. And actually right now, I'm seeing a lot of right now, and like starting 3 years ago, right before the pandemic, I've been seeing a lot of cold start dental practices pop up, actually. Young, forward-thinking dentists who don't like the current approach, who don't educate their patients, who don't find out, who don't do anything to be that patient's dentist, the new practices who do everything to be that patient's dentist, to be that community's dentist. I think there's a broad philosophical shift among practitioners, where among practitioners and consumers, local is cool again. You're supporting your local community is where it's at. Sustainability and ethical sourcing and all the buzzwords that I think some people might recoil at hearing. A lot of people take those seriously and make their decisions accordingly. I am the same way. I will avoid, for example, I don't go to Walmart if I can avoid it. I don't go to the big box retailers, because I know that whatever I spend there, whatever money I put into Walmart's coffers, leaves my community. So consumers behave the same way now, or more now than maybe 10 years ago. So in kind of bringing it back to your question, Dat, I do see eye care doing this more, especially as it becomes more reasonable, especially as legislative groups continue to work on behalf of the profession to increase the scope of practice. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, an optometrist couldn't do half of the kind of services that they can do now. And to not take advantage of the full scope of practice is missing a huge opportunity to separate yourself from your competitors. A couple of sessions ago, I think it was session 2, I think in session 2, we talked about pharmacy, right? The pharmacy industry. Similar thing happened. Mom and pop pharmacies were bought up by the big boys. Now you go to any city and you see Walgreens and a Rite Aid and some compounding pharmacies if you go looking for them. And I'm surprised to learn that about 35% of pharmacies in the States are still private practice, private owned mom and pop pharmacies. So there is a market, even if all of the consolidation happens. There is a market for private specialty businesses that do things that the big boxes can't do or won't do. Another question, with the recession here or coming in 2023, any advice for ODs to approach out of network? So yes, certainly. And I think that's a fantastic question. We've already started to see, at least I've started to see some reports that people are trading down a little bit. So as an example, if somebody drinks wine or beer on a regular basis, they didn't stop buying beer. They started buying beer that's like 30% less expensive. So you want to meet your patients where they are. And we're really lucky in this industry, to be honest. We've got plenty of frames that are of a high quality and a low cost that a patient can be happy with. I know we're really quick on the private practice side of things to diminish Warby Parker frames or other low-end frame companies, but the truth is a piece of acetate with like a good piece of steel in the center is a piece of acetate with a good piece of steel in the center. So if the frames are of a sufficient quality, if they look good on a patient and you can give them a high quality lens, single vision, bifocal, or progressive at a price that they are happy with, you will win their loyalty. The problem, I think, comes for a lot of private practices when a patient calls and asks, how much are glasses? The answer is either, we don't know until you come in, or some massive range between, $100 for a frame or $700 for a frame, between $100 for lenses or $1,400 for lenses. And a patient cannot make a decision with that information. But if you get a bit of information from them that they wear progressives and their prescription is whatever, you can give them an estimate that makes them feel comfortable buying from you. There's no reason that any practice on this call couldn't sell a pair of glasses for $200, a pair of progressive AR-coated lenses for $200, and be very profitable in doing so. So my approach, the way that I would suggest everybody approach out of network or open access in 2023 is to reevaluate your pricing model. Most practices, and you see this all the time on the various fora, people say like, what is your frame markup, or what is your formula for lenses? And I think it's long past time we got rid of that as a concept. The idea that because you paid $50 for a frame, that it should be $150 in retail or whatever across all of your frames doesn't actually make sense, especially if you think about things in terms of vision plans. So if you're 100% private pay, your prices are your prices, and your patients pay what your patients pay. If you give them a discount, that's on you, and you know what impact that has on your top and bottom lines, and that's awesome. If 80% of your business is vision plans, your frame prices are your frame prices because you need your vision plans to give their max reimbursement to you at the end of the month. So that's kind of the balance that you have to strike when pricing with vision plans. The freedom that you get when you're fully out of network means you can source your frames the way that you want them. You can price them where you like. And if you want a price match with something that other practices carry, that's up to you. And you're totally welcome to do that, but you don't have to. I know plenty of practices that carry Ray-Ban, and again, Ray-Ban is a great pair of frames. I don't want to diminish any of that, but they carry Ray-Ban because that's one frame that patients always call about and ask by name, and it's worth carrying for that reason alone. They'll make no bones about it. It's worth carrying because your patients are asking about it. But if you carry Ray-Ban and you set your prices at LensCrafters prices or Sunglass Hut prices, or whatever online prices, why would the patient come and buy them from you? Like, they could and probably should just go to LensCrafters at that point. Your practice offers them something that LensCrafters doesn't, and your pricing should reflect that. I'm going to get off my soapbox. here and get onto a different soapbox here to wrap up the presentation.
That's very true, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So the last 4 points here, and this is, I think, these are the most difficult parts of what we're describing. Building your business culture, cultivate receptivity to change, repeatable processes, and accountability. And specifically this last point, accountability cannot be a one-way street. So you, practice owner, cannot hold your team accountable while not having any accountability yourself. If you present like a new concept and you do it poorly, and it doesn't work, you can't just make it your team's fault. You've got to take some ownership of that, and you've got to be receptive to that accountability from your team. If it's a two-way street, you hold them accountable, they hold you accountable, you will both be better because of it. Okay, excellent. And the last thing, this last bit, is for everything that you do here, all of these things, controlling what you can control, what you want to do is be able to repeat this. This is the concept that you want to be able to repeat, is to take a new idea and implement it into your practice. And if you follow the steps that kind of we've run through these 4 sessions, you should be able to do that relatively consistently. And through this process, you should learn what works better for your particular team and what maybe didn't work. And it should also give you a better sense for how to evaluate ideas, not just the piece of equipment, not just the cost, not just the potential ROI, but how much work is it going to take for this idea to become a thing in my practice? And I think that is sort of an intangible value to doing things this way. I can't really put a number on it. I would love to, but I think it's worth $7 bajillion to be able to do this kind of process. So with that, we're left with the most important step. And that has been consistent throughout every presentation that we've done so far. The next step is up to you. This is my contact information. I know there's some questions about slides. Happy to share them. Just shoot me an email and I will send them your way. But if what you decide to do with this information is entirely up to you, but recognize that there are people and groups and organizations that want to see you succeed as an open access provider, that they want to see you succeed as a private practice provider. Talk to them, get their help, think about the value of their expertise and the investment that you put into it. It is up to you most of the time to make it worth it. So take the next step and do it with some help.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Steve. That was fantastic. That was a great kind of conclusion to this whole 4-part series. And before we go, we do have a raffle coming up. So I'm going to advance to that slide. $100 Amazon gift card raffle. I know we talked about shopping local, but sorry, Steve. And our winner is Steve Rice. Steve Rice, if you are in the audience, email us, admin@odysonfinance.com. You want a $100 Amazon gift card. And I've got 2 quick announcements, and then we can do a little Q&A for Steve. I think that's coming up here. So once again, Akrinos, Eric Matai, they're here to help you out. If you want to implement Steve's knowledge and wisdom and you just need a consultant to do that for you, definitely reach out. Also, if you want the best rates on credit card processing, POS, as well as if you're looking to buy a practice and you need some sort of loan, reach out to Darren Jackson and Wells Fargo. And our 2-hour CE event on billing and coding coming up in 2 weeks. So go ahead and scan that QR code, sign up for that. Don't want to miss it. Brand new presentation from Chris Wolf, who once again is very focused on profitability since he is a private practice owner as well. And in addition to this lecture, you're probably wondering when the next series is coming up. Steve's series was fantastic. First time we really did a series.
Yeah.
We are planning a new one. I'm teasing it right now because it's still in the works, but we should have the first lecture out probably December. We're focusing on owners that net over $1 million in their practice, and they're going to be sharing their techniques and how they got to that number. And most of these they started cold and they got to $1 million net. So we're excited for that. That series should run from December into early 2023. And with that being said, let's go ahead and check the chat. Do we have any questions from any members?
Not that I can see.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, you have Steve's contact info. And Steve, any final last words before we sign off today?
I'd like to just close with gratitude. Thank you, Odie's on Finance, Dat, Aaron, Julie, Chris, all of the work that you guys put in building this fantastic group online, and the opportunity to have these conversations I find incredibly valuable. So thank you to you guys. Thank you everybody for attending. Thank you to everybody who sponsored. Give Eric at Akrinos a call. If nothing else, he is very fun to talk to, and he might write you a song.
That's very true. All right, Steve. Well, thank you again. And thank you everyone for coming out on a Sunday morning. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and we will see you for the next event in 2 weeks. We're going to sign off.
Thanks, everybody.